It's live though. Hey,
It is
we're
live.
here. Okay.
Yes. Hi everyone, and welcome to Tap Into Your Creativity. I am so excited for you guys to join me today. We have my good friend, incredible, amazing, kick-ass queen mosaic artist, Mercedes Austin. And she is here joining us today. And thank you, everyone. Hi, Jane. Hi, Julie. Hi, everyone. Hi, Alex. Thank you all for joining us today. You're here for a treat. I am super happy that Mercedes is opening her studio doors here in Minneapolis. We are actually neighbors from our studios. And I'm just so excited that I'm able to be here with Mercedes, and it is going to be a treat for everyone just to see her studio and her process and inspiration. I've never really had a mosaic artist, so you're my very first one. Yes. And could not be more excited. So welcome everybody. I'm going to turn the comments off, and then I will turn them back on at the end of the interview for you guys. So if you have any questions, we're going to leave them at the very end. And wow, look at her work. Gorgeous. Yes, Julie, I agree. So you're in for a treat. So don't go anywhere. I'm just going to turn off the comments right here. And so needless to say, welcome, Mercedes. I am so excited for you to be here. Mercedes and I met back in 2014, I believe. Very funny story before we get into Mercedes. I actually ended up renting her old space at the building that I'm currently at the Casket Arts building. And we were fortunate enough to have a full wall of Mercedes' beautiful mosaic that we still have there. So I see her every day, even though that we kind of lost touch for a while, but we have reconnected, and it's been incredible to reconnect with such an incredible, amazing mind. And anyways, Mercedes, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I love that connection that we have, because I think studio spaces are very personal. So to this day, I'm still jealous that you're in that space because that was where my personal practice was, and it's definitely a lot larger and more windows than in here. So I'm glad you are still loving it, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask Mercedes to tell us a little bit about herself and who she is as an artist, and just to give us a little bit of her background, where you grew up, and
all of it. Okay.
All of it.
Okay.
Let's start from the very beginning.
Okay.
And you might have to speak a little louder so they can hear you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I like to say that I'm born and glazed in Minneapolis, thanks to my friend's husband for that quote. So I grew up in South Minneapolis, and I have been coloring on the walls all my life. And mosaic is definitely an art form that celebrates coloring on the walls, so there's no surprise that I ended up there. I was raised by a studio artist and a craftsman. That's my stepdad, and so my biological father was an actual industrial designer and engineer. And my aunt created one of the greatest agencies in Minneapolis, Fallon Worldwide. And so I kind of like to say I'm a mosaic of all of those family members. And recently my aunt told me that like my grandfather was a master craftsman and a chef, and so it's kind of neat to see like how all these different influences, whether whether they were directly around me or not, kind of influenced my path. I would say that is like I didn't actually take it seriously to be an artist like when I was going from junior high to high school. Like at that time, I think I was kind of being primed to like figure out what you're gonna really do in your life when you grow up. And it really wasn't until high school where I met a very dear teacher who I was lucky enough to live next door to him. So I think that really helped in my high school, like getting into one of the most coveted art classes that usually you don't get into until you're a junior. So I think like I learned secret handshakes and like how you can sort of like get through the system at a very young age. So I got into his ceramics classes. Definitely wasn't even thinking about mosaic at that time, but it was in his ceramics classes where he would use me as an example as an artist. And I think that's where it really clicked that I was an artist. I think it was having that peer recognition versus like my mom being proud of my stuff growing up, that it really solidified that I wanted to go into the arts.
And that's why I always say, like, thank you so much for all the art teachers out there, because your job is so important, and you don't know what a difference you can make to students, and validating our work at such young age, it just gives us so much more confidence, because at that time we're so not confident. Yep. And so to have that validation from a teacher is huge. So thank you for all the art teachers out there, because it's so important. So big shout out to them.
Yeah, literally, because I think that really kept me out of trouble for a while. I eventually got into trouble, but that kept me out of trouble for a while because I would stay after school and he would open up his classroom for just like open studio time and access to supplies. So that really changed me. Let's see. So as I transitioned from high school to going to the U of M, I lost sight of art, and I kind of was ushered into what a lot of students go into, is like figuring out a career where you're going to actually make money. And at the U, a very, very huge career was going into psychology. Like my intro class had 700 students, like 700 students. And I don't think I would have actually on my own come up with this like path that I'm going to be a psychologist, but like I kind of like got into the system, and that's where it led me. And I taking classes in that major for about 2.5 years. I would take one art class every semester and for my sanity. And I just had this like aha moment as like a 21-year-old. I wasn't happy and thriving and really felt like I was in control of my path as a career. And I just had this like aha moment of like, wait a second, I'm taking art classes for my sanity and to make me happy. Why don't I just pursue this? But listen, this was like 1997, and there was like no entrepreneurial studies and nothing about like turning your art into
marketing,
no,
any of that.
So it still looked like I was crazy to focus on art and spend what I was spending at the U to study it. But that was what I felt like. That was me starting to forge my own path. 1997. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. So
then what?
So then, because I think you're still super young and full of ambition at that time.
Yeah.
And what made you say, I got this, I want to do it, and I want to do this professionally?
Well, at that time, I had very low overhead. I wouldn't have articulated it in that way. And I was, for a living, I was actually waiting tables. So first of all, let's take a sidebar. My life philosophy is that everyone should actually be in food service or customer service for just genuine life skills and learning how to multitask under pressure, because I actually felt that was like my entrepreneurial primer, was feeding very hungry people that were in a hurry and cranky or something like that. Hangry. And being able to not like intensively keep your cool, but just keep the rhythm going. Like I think that being a waitress for 3.5 years really shaped me. So, but what I also couldn't have articulated at the time is I was a waitress in the warehouse district before it was like the cool warehouse district. It was like an open nothingness, tumbleweeds, and like a few manufacturing factories over there and like a couple dive bars. But there were some pockets of creatives over there, and that was really like the start of me networking and building my network of creative professionals. And like I would say it was really being able to like build a community of people that I could learn from, just very organically, that I would learn that there was commercial design and that you could put your creative skills to use. Like it wasn't always about a studio practice. So I was just learning about how are you using your artistry and making a living, because I don't want it to be this backup plan. So that was kind of where I got very interested. So I would say like I was waitressing until about the year 2000, 2001-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
so I
think it's really interesting that you talk about waitressing and giving you all the skills. And,
Yeah.
Now looking back, I'm a graduate of MCAT, the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, and I graduated in 1995. And at that time, we didn't have any, knowledge of, like you said, there was no business or marketing or anything.
Yeah.
And you kind of just had to do whatever your gut feeling was telling you to do. And so I think that by you putting yourself out there and, knowing how to manage people and how to take orders, also it's important. Because it's not only managing people, but also knowing how to handle those orders.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge learning curve to get you to the other side.
Yeah, and so for a little while in there, the University of Minnesota had a dark room in the basement of the McPhail Center when it was still in downtown Minneapolis. And so for a little while, I was doing side gigs, taking photos for people in more of a photojournalistic style. And then I was going into the highly cool but highly toxic darkroom and developing all my own prints on my like really upscale Ilford paper and using all the fancy filters and techniques and putting out some really cool artistic prints. And at that time, that was when digital photography was coming to be. And I didn't feel like I could have the technical chops to keep up with that. And I also was having insights on just what it was to take a little better care of myself health-wise. So I thought I probably shouldn't be in a basement full of chemicals. So I kind of put that aside. And then I started painting with acrylics and canvas. And I think for me, like I was trying all these things, and I can't say that I was looking for handmade tile. And I'd moved into Northeast Minneapolis and was still waiting tables. And that's when I discovered literally a place in a dive bar, but it was now a handmade tile shop called Clay Square Do Infinity. And I was like, I had some credits going on at the U. I was waitressing at a couple places, and I was like, "Are you guys hiring? This looks really cool." And he's just like, "Kid, who are you?" Like, it was just Josh and Lael, and they weren't like hiring, but he had me write my information down on this like tattered Post-it note. It was kind of had all this like pile of all this other stuff, and I thought I would probably never hear from him, but he contacted me a couple of months later. And the catch was they didn't have any way to pay me in money, but they could pay me in tile. And at the time, my experience was I already was paying more cash than I could really afford on art materials and credits at the U of M. So I felt like learning, not paying the university any credits, and then my pay was in materials. I was already a benefit. Looking back, I was living on the excess from my student loan money. Probably not a great financial strategy, but that is how that's how I lived and got paid in tile.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yep.
quite the journey
Little
to where
journey.
you are now.
Yeah, and so I did that with them for about 3 years. Eventually they paid me real money. And I think because I'm always looking and trying to build things, I think also like to their own credit, at the time I did have a chemical substance problem. So I had, for 10 years, I was literally high every day, and I was a very heavy drinker, and I was a heavy smoker. So this is like a Mercedes you've never met. So I was wild. I was a very wild, like if you went to a party with me, like you had the time of your life. You would have to tell me about what happened, but you had the time of your life. Yeah, so that was not a sustainable lifestyle. So I went pretty deep in I would say the more stereotypical service industry lifestyle, and that of how artists are stereotypes. And I think because, I don't know if it was like the 2000th person that just like kind of wrote me off, like I was this stereotypical like creative. I think that really lit a fire under me. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that as well when they're like told they can't do something or something's not possible. I think that's exactly what we need to hear, to be like, I'll show you. So yeah, I've been sober for, I don't know, 17 years. I've lost count. And it hasn't been difficult because I found handmade tile and mosaics. Like, this has been so engaging for my like very busy, very colorful mind that I don't think I'll ever run out of things
can
to
I
do.
ask you,
Yeah.
since you are opening yourself, how did you find the strength to get out of that lifestyle? What made you see the light and say, I want to grab to that versus what you were doing at the time?
I feel like I started to meet, like, this was when I was, I guess, venturing toward, my mid-20s, and just starting to meet people that were like in their mid-30s to like early 40s, where I had seen what that lifestyle started to look like and wear on, and just like the impact of that, that I honestly think being able to have a direction that I wanted to go in my life, and that I wasn't starting to compare myself to that person. I think that's one of the other very, very fascinating things about handmade tile is, and I think that's what was really overwhelming and just very intimidating to me in the world of painting and photography, is there were so many people that I would compare myself to, because there's so many prolific artists in there. I felt like I found a very untapped avenue. Mosaic, yeah, there are a lot of mosaic artists, but how many fools out there are also making their own their own tile and doing the mosaic art? There's not a lot doing that. I now know why. I understand why, but I think finding something to keep me busy enough so that was taking my attention, and I didn't have time to look at what other people were doing or whatever. Like, when I'd go into business classes and we'd have to do competitive analysis, I'd always get annoyed. Like, I don't want to look at what everyone else is doing to figure out what I'm doing.
I think it, easier said than done. I think that you have to also be surrounded with people that inspire you and help you, and it's a ladder that you're climbing by yourself, but
Yes.
There is a huge army of people behind you pushing you up that ladder.
Yeah.
And we can't forget what mental health is.
Yep.
And addiction and all that doesn't make you a better artist.
No.
And for years we thought that was, you had to be on the outskirts of things and just push yourself somewhere else in order to create. And I'm a huge believer that if you surround yourself with good people, and if you have, a good mindset, you can really prosper. And you are a perfect example. And you're going to see how Mercedes has grown from that person to who you are today. You are an inspiration.
Thank you.
You are someone who, a lot of our community looks up to. You're, like I said before, she's kick-ass and in every way, shape, or form. And I can't wait to show you, before we'll take a few more minutes here. So take us now. You are now working in your space, and you have, and you're working in your mosaic, and now you're thinking larger, and bigger.
Yeah, it started small to go big, so I'll just kind of do like the very high level. It's like started making home accessories and things that you could hang on your wall, which then turned into kitchens. Okay, kitchen tile is generally sold through showrooms, so I went on like a journey up until the year 2010 to sell my tile through kitchen and bath showrooms and distributors, which is kind of like the business way of playing operator. I played that in kindergarten. It's kind of similar. As like, did the homeowner order this thing through a designer who ordered the thing through the distributor, showroom who ordered the thing through the distributor who sent the order over at that time through fax to my studio, and did we deliver the thing that the homeowner wanted? Woo! So that was a great exercise to do also to develop business. Everybody who has Shopify and that could sell directly and has social media, you're welcome, because that was not available when I started out. So that was also the hardest way to sell. But then so kitchens and bathrooms turned into, hey, could we do this in a grocery store? Super fancy cheese area. So had a really cool journey working and doing a lot of things for Whole Foods. And at a point I couldn't really scale to the level that they needed us to quantity wise. So eventually, that ship kind of sailed. And so now we're selling directly. I make standard things, so kind of think of like off the shelf type of things, like different sizes of squares, Moroccan fish scales, and diamonds. I also sell like custom tailored suits in those shapes. So if you tell me your wall dimensions, we'll custom tailor these diamonds, and if you want them cascading in a river, we'll do it. And then we've sort of come back full circle, where we do sell the home accessory like the wall art and stuff like that. But it really took us kind of doing a little bit, doing a medium size, then doing freaking everything, and then kind of scaling it down into things that we could do really well repetitively that we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then now we're kind of teasing that out with getting some home accessories and kind of tapping back into where it started.
Yeah. And so Mercedes is being super humble about all her commercial projects. She has, you name it, she's done it. And we'll talk about it, and we'll show you more of her commercial work in a few minutes. But it's quite the journey from being an artist to an entrepreneur, and then trying to come back to your own as an artist, and how it's intertwined one with the other. And you're going to see the artist today, and we might have a part 2 where you're going to see the entrepreneur side of Mercedes in her beautiful manufacturer space. So why don't you take us in a little tour?
Yeah.
I'm going to grab the phone and I'm going to follow you around. And, okay. So, here we are. Okay. So, we are going to start right here. You go. Oops.
Nope, you're good.
Okay.
Okay, so, this kind of started the reboot of artistry. So this piece right here was recently finished in the last calendar year. And it was actually started 13 years ago, which sounds like a really long time ago, but just a tiny little part of it was started. And I put it away. I got so mad about how big and how complicated this thing was going to be that I put it away. And I took it out, and the thing that I tried to challenge myself with, which was really good, was like, yo, Mercedes, you need to just like finish a lot of these things that you started. And no matter what, just like show up, establish a regular habit. So my first challenge to myself was to show up for an average of 8 hours a week. And so if I was going to show up and work on art for 8 hours a week, I had to start turning over some of the other hats or functions that I was wearing on the entrepreneurial side to do this. So this June we'll be celebrating 2 years of that habit established and not thrown out the window. Because I've definitely tried it a lot of times and totally just like threw it out the window very quickly. So we're going to be celebrating about 2 years of it in June. Now with this piece, one of the things that I'm just like so glad I kept working on is I started to have so much fun in this like abstracted tree area. If anyone wasn't sure what the heck this was, this is like a woman, and the background is trees. So I started to have the most fun working on these trees. So I'm like, how could I make more of that? Because that was the most enjoyable process ever. Then this piece right here was born. So I started to really sketch her trees and just like variations of it. And I got together with a machine shop, and they created the tree part of this in a powder coated steel, so then I could just color in the background with my hand cutting and with my saw. So I was like, holy cow, that was really fun. And then what came from that too is being able to create pieces and just celebrating what the scraps look like put together. And it was probably good that I'd watched a few episodes of Rent the Runway, so I was trying to create like, okay, you have like the runway look and then like different accessible looks, because that's one of the things that's really been a challenge for me is like the things that I enjoy making the most, I have no idea how to sell. And that isn't actually the point, but there's this pressure on like, do you have to sell everything that you make? And I wasn't weighing myself down with that because I was really leaning on the entrepreneurial side. Like that is fueling my living. So this stuff I was able to start making without that pressure of like, okay, I want to create some accessible looks, which I also haven't totally figured out how to sell this, but that's not the point right now, is to figure out how to actually make things that keep me from quitting.
Exactly.
Because this like being able to come here and make stuff is what makes me be the entrepreneur that I am, is that I didn't sell out on myself. And if I'm fueling me as a creative, well, then I can show up in other parts of my life. So,
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Can we talk about this beauty?
yeah. Well, so she's another, like, the title of her is Sink or Swim. And she was made, gosh, right when I was in my very first commercial space. And it's interesting because it's not like, oh, when she was made and once like I solved the, problems in the business around that time, we were home free. But I think like she for me has been a reminder that there's several chapters that I've been through that, you could choose to totally sink and quit and have all the reasons to give up, or you can swim. You learn a new backstroke or what have you. So that's the story of her, and this is just simply like a former mannequin bust.
Oh,
super satisfying.
Super satisfying.
Yeah.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And just like, celebrating powerful female figures.
Yeah. So we're going to keep going here. You used to make mirrors too.
I did. Yeah. And, not small mirrors. I can't just make everything small. So yeah, this is another example of a piece that you can't even like purposely make these edge pieces with that black burnish, but what the real story behind them is, they were an oopsie of a client order, and I'm like, holy cow, these are like the most beautiful whoopsies that I've ever seen. So kind of technically, and I'll talk about it a little more later, is like what to do with all these quote misfit tiles from our production runs. But this kind of like, it was born in 2010, but I was like, we got to put that away. We don't have time to develop that. So even though I have like 9 million ideas, I've learned like you can't bring them all out at once. You've got to strategically bring them out, and I do leave
That's
room
hard.
for a little mess.
It's hard to do when
Really
you have a
hard to
creative
do.
mind, right?
Really hard to do. Yeah.
Wow. So what is this little great?
Yeah, so I really, really enjoy making things out of tile that don't seem like something that you would expect would be out of tile. So I'm going to show you a piece that I'm cutting up here, but hold it right there. So I cut out a piece right here. Here it comes. Grit is a very meaningful word for me because grit is all about, it's not about like you were born in the right family and you have all the right resources. It signifies like you are in something for the long term. You're showing up day in and day out. Grit isn't serious, so that's why I wanted to kind of pop some bubbles into this piece.
Ooh.
And I like combining a very standard backdrop with kind of like very playful lettering. And I'm so enamored by anything with lettering and tile. And I see a lot of it done digitally. And it's fueled my business a lot because people don't know they're looking at a graphic mosaic. And it's been really fun to just cut things out of tile that is font. So...
And this little piece?
This little piece, my friend Ashley made it on a mosaic play date. So that's another thing that I love doing over here. And I've committed to doing like every other month, of just having a friend over that needs kind of a tap out of their life.
So what I'm next.
Tap into, mosaic play date. Basically there's nothing that a good playlist, some coffee, and just like a small mosaic sketch.
Right.
Yeah, so speaking of mosaic sketches, that's what we've got going on over here. So as I said with that mosaic woman over there, she was something that I had started and hadn't finished, so now she's finished. Well, I had so many different small mosaics that I had started and hadn't finished, so like one of the therapies over the last 2 years was to finish. Like all of these little pieces I consider like sketches. So when I work on really large pieces, I can't just only work on a large piece. Like I need to have little sketches to warm me up and kind of get me going. And so these have been really great for it. And these are also like, these are made out of some of the leftover pieces from her, like this one for sure. And these are made out of leftover pieces that we have at Mercury Mosaics. Like maybe it wasn't the right shade of green. Maybe it was a glazed color test, but we end up with so many. And these bins are really super awesome for me. Well, first of all, it makes me feel like a kid in a candy shop. And second of all, as I cut things out, I keep all the scraps because sometimes like the scrap starts to become the whole beginning of a new piece. And by having different sketches going on the side, I'm able to riff off of the pieces will riff off of the pieces will riff off of like the mood I'm in, and I can like kind of have a few things going on at once, kind of like a leading an orchestra. And sometimes I don't want to play the drums every day. Like sometimes I want to play the tuba, or sometimes I want to play the flute.
Right.
So it kind of helps me.
What a great piece of
around.
furniture that you created here.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so fun, and like you said, it's like coming to a store.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. So this was this is a vintage old hardware store piece, and I had these drawers. So a friend of mine that's an architect and industrial designer made me these drawers.
Oh,
yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Okay. So this is definitely, this is a lot of the leftover tree scrap pieces from that mosaic woman.
So is this metal?
No. On the very first one. She's
the
full
very
ceramic.
first one.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
These bases that I put them on, like all these things that I had around the house over the last 3 years that I maybe just, okay, I don't want that on my bookshelf anymore, I'll just mosaic over them. So that's also a great way that
And I love this little piece.
Right? Yeah.
So fun.
I used to say underneath, I love you more than bacon. It was time to remove the quote, and now it's just...
So you can
it's a
put it
little
up if
Minneapolis
you
love.
want,
That's right.
or down, or,
Yeah.
just really fun. Oops, sorry about that.
No worries.
Now I'm breaking your
Literally
stuff.
fallen, Wanda. No problem.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. Let me show. Okay, so I've got this, like, depending on when it is or whatever, like right now I've got, I helped a friend install some tile in her kitchen. So these are her leftover pieces. You can see some of them were used here. This was, if we go into my design studio, like these are all the leftover pieces from my design studio backsplash. So I'll get all the mesh off of those, and there's some really good scraps in here. Like some of these pieces are going to be amazing. So, and this is like the grout sample, just kind of see that. But this is like kind of a sorting and recovering zone. So bucket, like trays of water will be over here, and the kind of sorting by color, and these will eventually go into color bins over on that wall.
Okay.
And then turn around behind you. So I need to have like a lot of really pretty spots for me to have my supplies. So this is another one where I really wanted to arrange these in a beautiful color spectrum, because I do kind of want to be able to go around my studio and quote shop for the pieces that I want, and it helps.
Oh my gosh, this is
like
truly
a ritual. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I was telling you before, it's like for us painters, it's like having all your paints out, and now you have them, organized by color, and it is just so fun and inspiring to come here and look for shapes and colors and shades of the colors, and so I think this is just fantastic.
So then, like, I'll show you kind of my sketching work table.
And right now, from what I understand, is you're very low, which you're happy because you've been using a ton of your leftover tile. So that's really cool.
Yeah, because when I would kind of reboot my personal practice, and I told you about all those times I'd quit, this time, like, this shelf was pretty much stacked out to where my hand is in May of 2022. So I had to discipline myself not to keep bringing more and more and more tile over here, because we manufacture a lot of tile. So I could have brought like tons of tile over here, but I had to discipline myself to really make a dent in this before I could start bringing other tile. So that sorting table behind you is like, I'm pumped because I'm finally starting to bring more tile in here, because I've shown myself. No one else made this rule. I made this rule on myself. Like, so I'm
But
showing
this,
myself
like, I
that
love
can
this
use
wall.
it.
It's so satisfying to watch, and
Yeah.
you just, you know, it makes you want to come and grab stuff and work from here. So
Yes.
that's just
That's
really,
the whole point.
right,
Yep. See?
exactly.
Exactly. So this is, okay, so this is where, so here's the other thing too, is I know all of us have like fetishes. There's some like people that like to collect shoes. I like to collect dishes, and I like to collect a lot of dishes and like bins that they don't have to match. And sometimes I don't know why I'm getting them, but like I never knew like, what do I need this for? Yes, that is why I need that, because these are great wet saw scraps that they just feel good. So I kind of like surrounding myself with a bunch of that. And this is a great example of like a warm up. So this was the mosaic that I did on my play date a couple weekends ago with my friend. And a lot of these, like I didn't have to cut a lot of these because a lot of these were left over from other projects. So the fun was just being able to assemble it. And I made like just a few cuts on my saw to sort of add a little uniqueness. But it was just like an exercise to sort of warm me up to starting something and completing something, because sometimes that's a whole pickle.
So when you have it, like, let's say right here,
Yeah.
this is where you use that tool,
Yes.
to break stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
So can you show us maybe how you use it?
Yeah. And also, if you're ever like worried about having like a timid handshake, everyone says I have the best handshake. Well, this is why, because I have really strong hands from nipping tile for 23 years. So this is, I'm putting the tile nipper partially on and partially off the tile, and I'm gonna put a little pressure over here, and then I'm gonna just do a little snap. And something about this can also be therapeutic, where you're just cutting them into like chiclets.
Wow.
Sometimes you
You
can
can
make
get
them just,
really
yeah.
small.
And not all tile cuts like butter, like this. Like this one's a little more crumbly.
Wow.
And I don't.
So it just depends on the tile that you're using?
Yes.
Depending on the cut that you get?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So some of them can be super straight and some of them can be crumbly.
that's right.
So do you actually know which one will crumble and which one doesn't?
Yes, I do. I'm just so glad you asked. So these that are on, this is like called red sculpture clay, and the white sculpture clay that we use are not as clean cut, and sometimes I like that. But then this white earthenware clay that we use is a little, let's just kind of compare it. You see it's a little brighter. This is like mosaic hand cutter's dream if you want it all nice and crisp. So this is all good information for me as I build my other brand that's coming soon, Mosaic Candy Shop. Like I'm gonna lean on colors that are made on this for the at-home kits that I design.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oof. That makes me want to start cutting right now.
Yeah, it's like really satisfying. Just kind of think about like your favorite podcast or an Audible book, and I usually like my attention span to work on stuff like this is about like a maximum of 5 hours, but 3 hours is like my sweet spot.
Yeah.
And then I like to balance out my life with admin. There's always admin galore on the entrepreneurial side. This is. So I told myself that I don't do people in mosaics, so that's why I'm doing this until I stop telling myself that I don't do that. And as a kid, I don't know what it was about it, but I was super into playing cards and the illustrations on them, and I've always wanted to illustrate in mosaic the royalty, because I like the juxtaposition of these full pieces of tile that I can make and the hand nipped pieces. It's just like there's something about all the hand nipping and the fact that I have this saw that helps me cut these shapes that gets me pretty excited to work on this. So she's been a long time coming, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make all the royalty, and then I'm going to digitally, not analog, create all the suits, and then these are going to be turned into a deck of cards.
So you can see all her little pieces right here, and now this is truly how she's putting all the detail on it.
Yeah.
Which is incredible to see that.
Yeah, and I am going to be crazy meticulous with this, and these are just here to be fit, but I'm going to be cutting across these so that we have this like kind of beautiful stripe, kind of similar to this. I think just graphically that's going to be really cool. I am not going to do this white outline. That's going to just be like a lighter grout or whatever, but that's what's going to go down here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
I mean, here it says it all, right?
Yeah, this is where I log my time, so that each week I add up my time that I've spent in here, because in order for me to justify that I have this place, like, I've got to show up an average of 8 hours a week. And if I do, it is my own integrity. No one is checking on it but me. I just need it for my own integrity, because you will be surprised where you spend your time, and if you don't track it, you can lose your time. But
right.
If you protect your time, that's how your goals come to life.
So
Yeah,
I'm
these
just
are
gonna
more
show,
like recovered.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Like these were left over from a Lululemon in Winnipeg, of all places. And I was like, I'm going to dive them into a flower mosaic.
wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, okay.
I think we covered a lot here, and I think you're going to demo a little bit on how you use.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little loud,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going to get to see Mercedes at work.
Yeah, so I'll show you. I kind of started one so we didn't have to sit here forever, but I'm going to just show you. So this is how I manipulate a straight tile and get a curved edge in it. I'm not a classically trained ceramicist. And so the disclaimer is, of course, you can do this when the clay is wet and cut out of it, but I don't make a lot of decisions about what I want to do with my pieces and tile until after it's permanent tile. So I absolutely love this wet saw. And there's all sorts of technologies that are way more efficient than this, but I think it's really important as an artist that you honor what's going to have you show up and what you love. And I love my little red wet saw. I do. So
Okay.
That's what I use.
Let's do it.
Finish the circle. Voila. Okay, and then you can see where I get these super sweet scraps. So this is, I cut this out of that white piece to put the navy heart in there. I've got that. Like, now you can sort of see like one piece feeds into another. So now we'll bring these over to my grit piece, because this was like that missing piece. And this gives me,
Wow.
yeah.
That's exciting.
I know. So that's what I'll do.
Ooh.
That's how I sink in. That's how I'll sink the grit in there too. But I just wanted to have just a whimsical bubble floating over here, because yeah, building a business and doing all this is really hard, and it can be serious, but I try not to take myself too seriously, which is why I'm trying to stick in, just
Wow,
a little,
look at that,
and
you
maybe
guys.
I'll just pop a little green in there.
Wow.
But that's just really satisfying. Now it's sunk
Wow.
in there. Yep.
Oh, I love that.
Right?
Wow. Yes. Wow.
So there
Thank
you
you
go.
for showing us that.
Yep.
Okay, now we're going to jump into a really fun images of, here's another, well, Mercedes is setting up.
Oh, my treasures.
I'm just going to make sure that you get to see all her little stuff around her studio. It's just so fun to be here, and you guys, I mean, I've never seen anything so clean in my whole life.
I'm right in left brain, everybody. I am right in left brain.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so now we're going to see some amazing images that, well, let's just talk about this one for real quick.
Okay, sure. So a friend of mine, and he also happens to be the first real life studio artist that I met. So I feel like I met him 26 years ago, before I even I wasn't even in tile. So this is Peyton Scott Russell, and this is half of his signature in graffiti translated into mosaic. So he and I made this together, and it was definitely at a time in my career where there wasn't really any room to do fine art. And he and I did this in 2010. So it was like a placeholder for me of I want to return to this kind of work.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Wow.
And I can't even tell you, because, so that's 13 years ago. I can't tell you wait, did I do this part and did Peyton do that part? I think that's a sign of a great collaboration, that I can't even remember which part was mine and which part was his.
So when you have this, do you have to have, in your queen, that you had a visualization of what is going where? Is that always how you start?
Yes, and it's not strictly adhered to, but it is created like a guide. So kind of think of it as like a coloring book page.
Okay.
And then room for freestyling and color selection as you go. So this was not exactly this when this was drawn out, and this is peeled from a mural that he had made that's like the size of a side of a commercial building. But while we laid it out, we had a lot of room to freestyle and to make different decisions on how we filled some of the spaces. Like, the integrity of the composition is very close to how he had laid it out in his aerosol art. But obviously in aerosol art, you're not going to have all of these crisp edges. So that was also part of the fun and challenge of the freestyling while we were laying this up, which was super intriguing. Yeah.
All right. So here we are in your commercial endeavor.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you come up with Mercury Mosaics?
So Mercury is the Roman god of skilled trade and craftsmanship. And I originally called my business Mosaics by Mercedes. And I didn't want to be coined as like one person making mosaics, because I always knew that I would want to work with a great team. And so it's almost like I manifested what I wanted to build when it was just me starting out. And so I made that decision to transition into a different name probably like 3-4 years into starting this. So Mercury. Yeah. So let's and I'm obsessed with Italy. Let's play
Let's play this beautiful slideshow that we have for you.
Yeah, so this is a commercial kitchen. This is like their branding translated into a landscape. This became a kitchen backsplash, and maybe I'll pause this, going so fast. This kitchen backsplash, when it was first put up, this is back in like 2018, there were a lot of people that were really enamored by this whole like river concept kind of cascading on their wall. That was a fun one to do.
I love the colors on that.
This is in Albuquerque, and we had a really, really, really fun history of working on stores for Lululemon. We did, I can't make this up, we did over 112 projects with them, and I feel like it was the best boot camp that we could have went through for doing custom work. And this is, you can kind of tell the context of the doors there, but this was definitely pretty early on in our work of working on commercials. So they were an amazing partner.
How did they find you?
They found us. Remember I said I worked through showrooms and distributors? Yep. So one of their designers had worked with one of our distributors and through Starbucks. And then when she switched over to working with Lululemon, then she remembered us and told one of her colleagues.
Wow.
So it was word of mouth and had a good experience with us.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. Okay.
Another one of the Lululemon stores, this one is in Boston. I'm going to put my finger here. So if you're standing in front of this is where your head would be. So this is a very large yogi brought to life. Those are 3x8, 3x12, and 3x6 and 2x6 subway tile. They look really small, but that is a very large mural.
Amazing.
Yes, another Lululemon. I think what's really kind of magical about landscapes that we make is now you see, if you kind of zoom in on how the colors dive from one or the other, but we maintain that pattern in the background. The secret to our magic there is a much more industrial saw than I used, but the saw is how we keep that really nice integrity with the patterns.
But also, the composition, the design, the color selection, there's a lot of thinking behind this.
Yeah.
So
you kind of show here's your shoe for that's to give
my gosh,
an idea of size. So
look at that.
Pretty big guy. Yeah, it's about 7 feet tall.
Wowza.
There's the bike for context on that one. Hello, kaleidoscopes. Very, very, very fancy. We wanted it to feel like a tapestry that had been
it doesn't even look like tile. It's so bizarre.
And and that's what I love working on the things that you don't necessarily, just like this graffiti piece up here, like the things that aren't going to be obviously tile.
Right.
Yeah. It's not just for kitchen backsplashes.
Yeah.
It is.
It's so versatile. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah.
But it is for kitchen backsplashes or commercial bathrooms. Like, I really respect a business that will really invest in the beauty of their restroom. Like, they wanted the employees to have a luxury feeling bathroom, and we were very happy about this. Triangles are fantastic. This is so Gregory's, he's technically first generation entrepreneur. However, second generation entrepreneur in his family, based primarily out of New York. His father had a food service business, and he's just like taking the coffee culture by the seat of his pants and really creating very on-brand coffee houses that have a really fun, like, quirky feel. And he
this is
really
so
decks them out
fun.
in tile.
Wow.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Yeah, so he really helped us get our blend chops up the last couple of years working on his coffee houses. So this is in our production studio. Again, with that whole not taking myself too seriously, it's been honestly a big pleasure to be able to have it where dogs can come in. They really lighten up and make a workspace feel a little less like a serious factory. Look at the sunlight in this place. That's also pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But this is a rock and roll poodle, and he is just having a little nap there. And that's our version of the candy shop here. These are all bins of tile, and that's also one of my favorite places to go grab. I have to restrain myself. Yeah. Because they keep inventory over there, and I don't want to mess with that. I think the same is continuing, because this is like a candy shop too. This is in our design studio, same building as where that dog was taking a nap. And this is our standard color palette. So this is this is our box of crayons and tile.
Amazing. Wow.
I feel like when you can start with something
really
inspiring.
Capture you too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Love it.
Okay, and then another view of the design studio, because I didn't want to put together a tile showroom that felt like a tile showroom. If that makes sense.
Yes.
There's a lot of tile showrooms where you're like, this feels just like a tile showroom.
100%.
Yeah, so I wanted it to have this just like super inviting feeling. Okay, now we're back into where we make the tile, and obviously what's going on here is a lot of bubbles. So I do say we're like a bakery for tile, and this kind of gives you a sense, like this literally does look like a bakery. Those do look like cookies, and those are food service racks. But look at all that tile that needs color.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Oh, now we're onto the piece.
Okay. So
I can tell you about this.
yeah, please do.
Okay. So
Let me just tell you guys.
Yeah.
Mercedes is also one of our army of artists, and she is so generous in providing this piece. And as you know, every piece that we sell here, 100% of the proceeds go to Feeding America. We're asking $300 for this beautiful, beautiful mosaic piece. $300 translate into 3,000 meals for people in need. And I always say this because now more than ever, we need your help. You get a fantastic, beautiful, amazing piece of art. And at the same time, you're going to be helping other people that are in real need of food. So thank you for doing that for us. So if you're interested in purchasing this piece, please DM me or Mercedes, and we'll let you know what to do next. But go ahead and describe this piece for us.
Yeah, so here's what's kind of cool. So we wanted this to feel like a historic stained glass window. And so as part of all of the tile that I work with in my personal studio is all upcycled from our production tile at Mercury Mosaics, this piece as well. So I really wanted to figure out how to make mosaic art at scale. And this is a great example of it. So there's two things.
How big is this?
So this piece is approximately 13 inches by 23 inches.
Okay.
And it is framed with Monoman Reson timber. So these are like over 100-year-old timbers. So we have one of my friends owns a reclaimed timber yard in Hugo, Minnesota. So our framing comes from that. And these pieces in our I'm not trying to say that we make perfect handmade tile, but there is a level of scrutiny that they must go under because we're shipping them all over the U.S. And some people are like, I don't love seeing these brush strokes, and some people love that. And so we reserve some of our pieces that have higher levels of brush strokes to go in our art, which is what you see here. And for me, this is mesmerizing. You can even see how we've
For me,
put
it
these
looks like
together.
a Hansa. The hand of the Hansa. And so, it's interesting how each one of us can see something different, and it's the same. Same happens for, abstract work and all that stuff. And we're going to go back because, believe it or not, we're almost to the hour. And yes, we are. It's absolutely crazy. And I'm going to turn on the comments right now. And I think that if you have any questions right now for Mercedes, this would be a perfect timing to ask questions. But also for you to, sorry guys, I'm going to switch the camera around again. And here we are. I am so excited about, everything that happened today. I know we gave you so much information and in little time, but I'm hoping that, if you ever thought of doing any, type of mosaic artwork, you are going to be able to find this information and take it into your own studio or start imagining, things that are maybe you thought it wasn't possible, and now you can see it because it's tangible and it's doable. And thank you, Doris. She's saying in Spanish, I love your work, and she's saying congratulations. So thank you for being here. And just in general, you guys, if you have any questions whatsoever, you can always DM Mercedes. I'm sure she will be more than happy to answer. She is a very busy lady, but also very committed, and she is someone that you will learn from. And stay connected to her, stay connected to me. Let's do good today, and think about purchasing Mercedes piece for $300. Again, it's 3,000 meals for people in need. And let's just keep rocking and keep helping people, and one interview at a time, one artist at a time. And tap into your creativity. Could not be prouder to have Mercedes here today. So thank you so much for an incredible interview.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'll do it anytime.
So tell us where we can find you, actually, if people are wondering where they can find you.
Yeah, okay. So first and foremost, my epic tile empire, mercurymosaics.com or at Mercury Mosaics on Instagram. And then my personal artist website is mercedesaustinart.com, and of course at Mercedes Austin Art on Instagram.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think we're going to do a part 2 sometime in the summer maybe, and we're going to go into her industrial space, and you're going to get to see that part, which is also incredible. So thank you for joining us today. Happy Saturday, and that's it.
Yeah,
we're
take
out.
care.
Thank
See you later.
you. Bye-bye.